Hi and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to take some simple items from your crafting arsenal and turn them into tree stumps and hollowed out logs for your forest terrain scatter. Stay tuned and I'm going to show you how it's done. See you in a little bit. Bye. To get started, you want the insulation foam board that you find at your local hardware store. Now the thing to keep in mind is depending on its thickness is going to depend on how wide your strips are going to be. So basically, if you have the 1-inch thick kind like I did, you're going to want to make sure that you cut it so that it is also 1 inch. So that way you're basically working with a piece that is 1 inch by 1 inch and the length of however long or how many pieces you want to make. This means you can also customize the sizes to smaller or larger depending on how big you want your hollow trees and stumps to be. The most important thing is that everything is balanced measurement-wise. Once you get your pieces cut out into the different sizes that you want for your stump heights as well as for your log lengths, what you then want to do is start beveling off those corners. When it comes time to making the hollow logs, what you're going to do is take a long slice off the bottom of the foam, and that way it gives you a flat surface for your hollowed out log. You can then also work on shaping it a little bit more to give it that half moon shape. Once you get the shape that you'd like for your log, what you're going to do is take a mechanical pencil and just draw a line on the inside area of this half moon shape to kind of show where the edges of the bark are going to be on this. Once you have that established, what you then want to do is make some narrow vertical slashes from the top part of the half moon down to the base of the log. And you're going to want to make sure you make a few of these next to each other. Once you've made those vertical cuts, you're then going to go back in with horizontal cuts, and you're going to again keep those slices within that smaller half moon shape of the log, and this is going to help you start creating the hollow area. So what you do once you get these hatch marks into this section, you can then take your thumbnail and start breaking off those pieces. It's sort of like how you would chop an onion basically, and using your thumbnail you can dig into it and start creating the hollow look to the log. And in the end, this is what you should have resulting from what you've just done using your utility knife and a piece of insulation foam. The stumps are essentially the same concept as the hollow logs. You do want to make sure that you have your length a little bit shorter, and it does help to vary the height of your stumps a little bit as well. Basically what you want to do, again using that utility knife, is you're going to do deeper bevel cuts off the corners, save those pieces, you don't want to get those gone quite yet, and then just do your best to make this a rounded shape. It doesn't have to be perfectly round, trees aren't perfectly round. Once you get a shape that you like, what you then can do on one side of your stump is create the concentric circles. The next thing you're going to need is a circular cut of cardboard, make sure it's corrugated cardboard, and you are going to then go back to those corner bits that you just cut off and kind of slice it so that you have these triangular pieces, and you'll see why in just a second. You're going to glue your stump onto the corrugated cardboard, and then you're going to glue those triangular pieces up against the base of the stump. These are essentially going to turn into your roots. When you're done prepping your stumps, you should have something that looks like this. If you've watched the tree dice tower video, you've seen this technique before. So basically, to add the bark texture, what you want to do is using a low temp hot glue gun, and that is the key part here. You're basically going to add these lengths of hot glue back and forth along the length of your hollow logs to create a bark-like texture. I'm putting a link above for you so you can actually go to that video and check out the technique itself. You also want to make sure for the hollow logs that you put some glue around the edges of the opened area, again to give it that more rotted log look to it. When it comes to the stumps, what you first want to do is add those running lines of hot glue to the open spaces before getting to the roots. For the roots themselves, it helps to coat them in hot glue first and then bring the hot glue up to the top portion of the stump just to give it a smoother, more cohesive look to it. Again, you can always use the tip of your hot glue gun nozzle to shape and add some more texture to it, but in the long run, you want to make sure that your stumps end up having this look as well. Now we're going to be going into the base coat for these, and it is important that you make sure you do this step to help make the foam a little bit stronger. So you are going to be taking some Mod Podge and some black acrylic paint, equal parts in this case, and then make sure you paint everything. Now when it comes to the corrugated cardboard, go ahead and paint the top portion of it, but you don't have to be as concerned about getting everything painted on the corrugated cardboard pieces of the stump, and you'll see why in a little bit. You want to make sure that you let this dry completely though before we move on to painting the colors onto these stumps and hollow logs. And here are the colors we're going to be using to paint these guys up. We're going to start off with burnt umber, move on to sunripe tomato, then on to golden sunset, and finally nutmeg brown. So the first thing you want to do is taking the burnt umber, you are going to paint this color onto your logs and stumps, allow it to dry completely. Next thing you want to do is taking a cosmetic wedge, and for this technique, see that link above, you're going to then sponge on the sunripe tomato, and you want to get this to about 40% coverage of this color. Please don't be scared by this color, it will not be so red when we are done with this process. When that has dried slightly, move over to the golden sunset, and yes, again, this looks a little odd, but trust me on this one. While you're letting the golden sunset dry, you then want to take coffee latte, and on the top of the tree stumps, basically dry brush this color on to bring out the texture of the concentric circles that you made with your mechanical pencil. When these have dried completely, you're going to go then to the nutmeg brown, and you are going to dry brush all over the logs and the stumps as well, except you do not do the top portion of the stumps. And when you do this step, you are going to see that the color gets slightly muted down. However, it leaves your logs and your stumps with a warmer wood quality-like look to it when you are done. You can also go back to the hollowed out logs and then just put some black acrylic paint inside the hollowed out area to add that depth perception to them. Once everything is dry, you're going to go back to those tree stumps, and actually what you want to do here is start peeling away the bottom layers of the corrugated cardboard, leaving just that upper paper portion of the cardboard. Then you're going to go in with a pair of scissors and trim away the excess paper that is between your roots of your stumps. This is going to make it so that these stumps can be placed anywhere and be far more modular in their use. Just be careful as you're trimming away that you don't cut too close, because sometimes you can nip off the paint that is on the roots. So take your time with this. Make sure you use a sharp pair of scissors in this step as well. Now that everything is prepped and ready, the next step is going to be giving everything a wash with Citadel's Agrax Earthshade. Make sure you get into all the nooks and crannies of the bark textures, as well as the concentric circles on top of the stumps, and let this dry completely before we start adding on the foliage and the little extra details. Now, technically you could leave the hollow logs off a base, but I thought it'd be fun to put them onto something where I could add a little bit more to them. If you choose to do this step, you are going to want to get a hold of this particular ribbon. It's moss ribbon. I have a link in the description below for you. You're going to need that and a piece of corrugated cardboard. I just did sort of a free-formed oval-ish shape for the base, and then what you're going to do is make sure that the length of the log will fit on this base first, and then you will hot glue this onto a piece of this moss ribbon. When you go to cut it away, make sure you do leave an edge to this ribbon so that you have a little bit of excess. What we're going to then do is take that hot glue gun and fold that excess over the edge of the cardboard to hide the corrugation and to give it a more seamless look to the base itself. You may find as you're gluing it down, you get some pieces that pop up here and there. That's easy enough to fix with just a little dab of hot glue as you go along, and you can press it. But when you're done, you should basically have this nice oval shape round bit of moss covered ground. One thing you do want to be sure of before moving on is that you take straight up Mod Podge mat and you put this on top of this moss to make sure that everything is sealed down and kept in place. Otherwise, it may flake on you a little bit. If you find you have some bald patches on your moss ribbon, what you can always do is take some pieces that may have flaked off while you've been cutting and just hot glue those over those areas to fill them in a little bit more. A very easy fix as well. To enhance the look of the natural environment for these fallen logs and stumps, I've gone back to using those aquarium plants. They're basically in the form of mats or their own separate plants, but they are great for adding foliage to small terrain pieces. You can also use those tufts of grass that you can find from various suppliers for miniature painting. So what I did here is basically you're going to first hot glue the logs onto their bases. It does help to kind of give them an angle and not go straight on. It just varies the look a little bit. Once you have that glued into place, you can then start putting different bits of foliage around the logs to enhance the look of them. The other cool thing you can do is take bits of the moss ribbon and then hot glue little tufts onto the logs themselves so they look like they have moss growing on them. Basically have fun with it and be a miniature gardener. It's going to be a similar concept to that of the stumps. Of course, with the stumps, you don't have a full-on base, but you can still glue things like the little tufts of grass up against the root areas, or even on the top, because sometimes you'll see in the forest you have little plants growing out of old rotting stumps. Basically, just have fun with the aesthetics of this. You want it to look natural, you don't want to make it too overdone, but you'll find that by adding these little touches of smaller plants, it definitely gives it more of that forest feel. And here we have our final look for the hollow logs and the tree stumps. This is one of those projects where it's actually pretty quick to put together. The longest part really is waiting for some of the paints to dry. When it's all said and done, it creates a really cool impact piece of scatter that you can place onto your terrain and definitely gives it the feel of being deep in the forest. As always, if you have any questions, you can comment down below or you can email me at thecraftingmuse.email@gmail.com. Thank you so much for taking your time to watch this today, and I look forward to sharing some more with you later on. Have a good one.
Hello. Hello. I am going to show you how to make things because I like to make things. You like to see how the things are made. Yeah.
Always check you don't have anything stuck in your teeth. Otherwise, you realize it after the fact, and then you have to record again. And that's just ever so convenient when you're under some time constraints. Oh, yeah. Just kind of... Oh, stop autofocus. Focus, but not auto. Not the auto. You know, like not the mama, but not the auto.